All right, then. There you have it from Sabongere in Kano. Nanchin Vincent talking about quite a large number of people.
That's quite a situation.
Yeah,
right
with PVCs who are unable to vote. They can't find their names and so on. Of course, they have their own belief as to why that is the situation. But I understand now that we can go to the INEC situation room in Abuja, where not the INEC chairman, the National Commissioner in charge of Voter Education and Publicity, Mr. Festus Okoye, is standing by.
It's been a pretty long day for him because he spoke in the morning about having to go back to the situation room before he can answer certain questions that were posed.
Maybe those are the questions
I actually wonder what they will be saying, because from what the chairman said, the situation room is supposed to monitor the deployment and then get reports. So would those reports change anything that's already happened?
And would they have had all of the reports in by now?
And since INEC has a power to extend elections up till tomorrow, what effect would those reports?
Is there a remedy for those who've been excluded?
For those who've been excluded, those who have not been able to vote, in spite of having valid PVCs.
We got news of this estate, I think Crown Estate somewhere in Lagos. Okay,
I think we should listen in at this point. He started talking.
To talk until we can hear him.
We can hear him.
Yes.
So the Crown Estate residents say they've been voting there for as long as they can remember. But today they came out and the list they had only 6 of their names there. There are over 700. Only 6 of their names were on that list. And it took a while for the officials to arrive. But eventually when they came, only 6 of them had their names there. So the rest, they were wondering, where are the rest of these names coming from?
And who replaced them?
And who replaced them? So and that's Crown Estate. So I can imagine how many other people, remember we heard from our correspondent about 710 in Abeokuta.
I think a lot of people say it's often a mystery, some of the things that you hear when you look at the results and the amount of people who voted in the first place.
But they always tell you go to the board, names are pasted there. It is now when you've checked. Sometimes there are those who say sometimes what you see on the wall when INEC says go check your name and be sure it's there. By the time you come back, when they now have the register for them to work with, it's a different thing from what was on the wall.
But you know, even that whole thing on the wall, when you're unhappy with it or something has happened, what is the timeline for redress? What even happens if you have an issue and something is already on the wall, you know?
Yeah, I think it's a difficult situation. And one can only hope, even though it's not apparently clear, what the remedy
that's my worry
for this particular situation.
If you are disenfranchised due to a failure of the system, what's your remedy?
What do you do?
I mean,
would you go to court?
And then what would you get?
In any way?
You want to vote, so what would the court do?
Okay, I think we can hear Mr. Okoye now. Let's see if we can.
It was made very clear that the use of the smart card reader is mandatory. Therefore, no staff of the commission or any ad hoc staff of the commission is permitted in whatever guise to deliberately refuse to use the smart card reader for the conduct of elections. According to the regulations and guidelines of the commission, it is negligent conduct for any ad hoc staff to refuse to use the smart card reader for the process of accreditation or for purposes of accreditation. And any of them that refuse to use the smart card reader or deliberately violated the use of the smart card reader is subject to prosecution in accordance with the regulations and guidelines of the Commission and the Electoral Act. The Commission has also received reports of violence and ballot box snatching in some areas, leading to this disruption of the process. We have asked the resident electoral commissioners and the officials of the Commission on ground to submit their first-hand reports in relation to some of these incidents. We are still receiving reports relating to incidents in some states of the Federation, but we have received reports relating to incidents in Akukoturu and Boni local government areas of Rivers State. So long as the Commission could not deploy in these areas, the implication is that polls did not open in these areas. And the Commission will hold consultation with the relevant authorities and with the resident electoral commissioners in relation to these areas, and will announce the dates for the when polls will take place in some of these areas, especially in relation to the areas that may be affected as relates to the House of Representative elections and senatorial elections. So this, for now, amounts to the update we can give at this moment. And I will just take a few questions and head back to the situation room for us to continue with monitoring of the situation and consultation with the resident electoral commissioners and electoral officers and other INEC staff.
Okay, we'll just take 4 or 5 questions. Number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, number 7. That's it. Please do your numbers. Number 1, please.
No, I think so. Take the microphone.
For us. Let's just, there seems to be a bit of a loss in our audio there, but while we, a bit of a lull rather, while we try to establish what else Mr. Okoye has to say, perhaps during Q&A. Yes, we can look at what he said already. And he did talk about the fact that there was no deployment of men and materials to Boni.
That, for example, Boni and Finima, that if there was no deployment, they had to be taken that nothing took place in that area.
They will also hold consultations
and know what to do
to determine what will transpire there. And he did say no card reader, no voting.
But and no accreditation, that anybody who was accredited without the card reader, whoever authorized that had committed a criminal offense and would be appropriately dealt with.
So in that case, where the Speaker of the House of Representatives voted, they'll have to answer some questions.
Yes, that would be the inference.
The report we had from Nancy
from Kano as well, where they have PVCs,
but not on the list.
But not on the list.
Yeah.
Yes.
Names not on the list.
Even for the estate that you were talking about,
for
where
the Crown Estates in Lagos,
in many cases.
So that would be a lot of
what
work
would
for
happen
INEC.
to the people whose ballots were burnt, allegedly?
Yes.
Would they have a chance to
vote
again? I mean, these are, you can't disenfranchise people and say, well, it's just one of those things. You know, there must be.
And it brings us back to what we were talking about earlier in the week about the result and how well it will be accepted when you have incidences like this. So the question is, will people be happy either way?
Yes. It's a difficult one. I think we tend to just steamroll on and look at the big picture rather than these little. But I think we have to get to a point where every vote and every citizen's desire to must be protected. So if events beyond your control disrupt his right, you must create a contingency for him. That's my belief, that you must have a day where you say, okay, all gather at such and such a place. And
because some say it's a human rights issue, that your rights have been...
It is. Yeah. It is the bedrock of democracy.
So since the laws of the land give every Nigerian the right to vote, can a citizen decide that, okay, like post-election petitions, the politicians go, can a citizen decide that, okay, I'm going to sue INEC for disenfranchising?
For disenfranchising.
You know,
has that
been tested?
I would say that technically, yes. The question would be whether the court would... Now, what would be his quote and unquote, what would be his prayer? Would it be,
what would he be asking?
Yeah, what would would it be, compensate me for the time that I spent? Or would there be some general damage for denial? It's not really it's not listed as a fundamental human right. So it won't be a fundamental human rights action. Okay. It will be probably a tort or something like that, a civil action. What would be the claim? Now, is it you prevented me from voting? Or thugs came over? There'll be different scenarios where they didn't show up in Bonny, for instance. That's a failure of INEC. But what's your remedy? You know, it's a very difficult thing to say.
What about those who say if it's just 2, 3, 4 people, then their votes will not make a significant difference to the outcome? Yeah, there are those that make that argument.
Yeah, there are some who make that argument. Like I said, it's not an easy one because the courts would be, the challenge of the courts would be, what do we do? What does he, and if we say damages, what's the measure of damages for my inability to vote? It's very difficult to, you know, put a figure.
But if you take it from the angle that if a party logo or name, for example, is omitted from the ballot, that invalidates the election.
Yeah, but that's a party.
That would be difficult. That would be difficult to say. Yes, I think the courts have ruled on such things before. But there is this general, there's what they call substantial compliance, that you have to look at the competing inconveniences. So, I mean,
so it's not
the person with the greatest inconvenience.
If you want to look at it from that angle, if one party's logo is enough to cancel the entire election, in this case, you have more than 100 people saying they have been disenfranchised. We had that report from Nancy.
Yes, I agree, but that won't
that's
counsel.
Not substantial.
That won't counsel a whole election. The question will be, look. I don't think the court can resolve that with any, because what the people wanted, they wanted to vote. They didn't want money in exchange
for
etc. So what society and the legislator, etc., will have to look at is a contingency provision. Where if events outside the control of INEC.
Okay, let's see if we can go back to the INEC National Commissioner now.
So we are just waiting for reports. We need to clarify, we need to be sure about these reports before we take a final decision in relation to them. So what we are waiting for are the official reports from some of these states for us to take a decision in relation to them. When I briefed you in the morning, we did acknowledge that there were smart card reader malfunction in some polling units across the Federation. The registration area technical support staff of the Independent National Electoral Commission intervened in most of these challenges we have with the smart card readers. The reports we have is that they succeeded in resolving the challenges in most of the states. In any state where the smart card reader issue has not been resolved or was not resolved as at 2 p.m., the standard procedure, as we have in the regulations and guidelines, is that the elections will continue the following day. But we had said earlier in the morning that in all the places where polls started late, that the Commission has extended the time for closing of polls until every person who is on the queue has voted. And that in most of the states, the resident electoral commissioners have passed this instruction down the line. And in most of the states, they are complying with this directive of the Commission. In relation to when the elections will take place, the moment we receive official report from the resident electoral commissioners in relation to what happened in each of the polling units, or what happened in the registration areas, or what happened in the local governments, we will take a decision after assessing the nature of the report and the nature of the incident that took place in those areas. Now, the standard procedure is that when polls are over and sorting and counting of votes have taken place, the presiding officer must cancel all the unused ballot papers for that particular polling unit, and also engage in what we call reverse logistics. The presiding officer must be presiding officer. So all the unused ballot papers must be cancelled immediately after the conclusion of elections. On the issue of postponement, I think I have addressed them. In all the places where voting did not take place, we need to harvest the places where voting did not take place, and we are going to take a position as a commission in relation to those places. We also received reports of late commencement of polls in Kaduna, and we were in touch with the resident electoral commissioner, and as at 11, most of the challenges had been addressed, and if anyone has not been addressed, we are going to get official report from the resident electoral commissioner, and we will definitely address any of those challenges, any of those reports. I think that's it. So thank you very much. I'll go back to the situation room. If there's the need to come back and update you on a few issues, I will come back on. What's the issue?
Configured to say configured for the 16th. We don't have received what they have compared to 16th at 16
Well, in relation to the smart card readers, you said we are configured to reach 16th in Taraba State. We don't have any report in relation to that, but when we get back to the situation room now, we will call the relevant officers and we will investigate the situation, and if there's the need to give a further update or to give a further direction in relation to what is going to happen, we will let you know. But if you have details of what the issues are, if you make available the details to us, we will investigate and we will report back. Thank you.
Over 5,000 there's no polling units.
A friend from Leadership newspaper talked about a polling unit with over 5,000 registered voters, and they were issued with just 500 ballot papers. There is no polling unit in any part of Nigeria with a total of up to 5,000 registered voters.